watching us instead of watching baseball, figured that we're going to update you. Jock Pearson just a 2-run home run to tie up game 2 of the NLCS, excuse me. We're still getting used to being in the CS, we're getting used to that, but that is happening over there. And I agree with everything you guys have said. I mean, Cole, I do agree with you. So it's a bigger step than I kind of made it out to be, but there's still a lot of things that can be done. These players, they still necessarily aren't making livable wages, and I don't think that that's gonna get there anytime soon now because the owners are gonna use this like, hey, we're giving you housing, like
Right.
that's you don't have to pay for that, and like to a certain extent, it kind of checks out because theoretically they could argue like, well, we could give you some more money, but then you have to use that for housing. But
Mhm.
anyways, they still aren't making the wages that they deserve because whatever you want to say about it, they deserve to make livable wages. They're supplying a ton of money
Mhm.
for these franchises. A lot of these players are being marketed by the team. Hey, look at not to pick on you guys, but I mean the Padres were in this position too just a couple years ago. Like the future, like Bobby Witt Jr. or
Alec Thomas.
Alec Thomas, or I'm trying to Corbin Carroll. Like these guys, they're being marketed, and these guys have made more money because they're higher draft picks. But you know the other guys around them, they're not making enough money, and they're still anytime you boast like our minor league teams, they all did well this year. Well, you can boast that so that way these people who have made enough money can buy season tickets for you, saying, all right, I'll buy the tickets now so that way when the team's good in a couple of years, I have the lower price
Mhm.
and all more perks. But the team is benefiting off of these minor leaguers who aren't making anything
Right.
and are working every single day. They're playing 6 days a week. They're traveling in buses across the country to play in these really small towns, live in some really bad hotels because that's what the team wants to pay for because they're just trying to maximize the money there. But it doesn't make sense. So it's a good to see this first step from the owners that they are going to be doing this. So it's a long road,
Yeah.
but the owners, they did make the right decision here, and I hope they can continue to make some right decisions for these minor leaguers.
Yeah.
Next thing on the market, so these moves were announced just after the season ended. Padres and Jace Tingler, they ended up deciding to relieve Jace Tingler of his managerial duties. They did offer him a position to stay in the organization because they have to pay him for another year, and because he has a great working relationship with AJ Preller, so you might as well try and keep that relationship. But if the players don't like him as a coach, I'm not for that, but I don't really know the details. And then Luis Rojas and the Mets, they have parted ways. So Rojas will be finding a different organization. And from everything I've heard, he's going to be of interest to some of these teams. But that's not the big news on Thursday, right? Was it Thursday for the
Mhm.
Mike Schilt?
I think so.
Mike Schilt and the Cardinals. The Cardinals fired him with 1 year remaining on his deal due to um, disagreement on the organization's future. It was a very interesting fire to say the least, especially after the success that Mike Schilt had with the Arizona Cardinals. So, Ryan, I'm actually gonna go to you first here because you're a Central boy with your Royals and their interleague rivals. I mean, I
And
know you
my
were shocked.
and my sheer hate for the Cardinals,
Right, yes.
my sheer hatred. This came as a shock. And I know they said philosophical differences with where the team was going. I think that that's just not true. Something else is there. Like I know people are going to put stock into it and how there was those differences, but at the same time, there had to be something that happened because you would have heard about how they were leaning towards parting ways, towards firing him. But no, this was a abrupt, shocking move at a split second. And I think that when you look at this move, it's still kind of you. Even after the press conference, I was left without answers. They said the smoke screen stuff of how, oh yeah, it's philosophical differences. Where? I know that where the team's going. Well, here's the thing. What Mike Schilt had done for that organization ever since he took over when they fired Matheny halfway through the season has been impeccable. He's been terrific. And they're going to throw that all away over philosophical differences. Something else was there. And there was 1 year left on his deal. So there's something else there. We're probably not going to hear about it for a long time, if we even ever do. But I think there's something there. But overall, I kind of think it's a stupid move because of how good of a manager that he is.
Cole, what are your thoughts?
Well, to start, and I have an article pulled up here, sort of detailing what those quote unquote philosophical differences may be. One of the biggest being, it sounds like, and this is very interesting, and take this how you will, but it sounds like there was a clear difference in opinions between John Mozeliak, who is the Cardinals president of baseball operations, and Schilt in terms of implementation and sort of progression through analytics. And this is something we have seen. It's here. It's been here. It's going to stay here. In fact, it's only going to get even more complex and data-driven as we go forward. But it's been here forever, and teams are trying to implement it more and more into their game plan. And Mozeliak wanted to push this front and continue to sort of grow in this area and personify this analytitle philosophy. And Schilt, it appears, just was not on the same page. And there's a little bit of something to be said about that. And I'm not one of those people who's going to crucify Mike Schilt because he's not into that aspect of baseball. I think if you've been in baseball long enough, you understand what's eyewash and what matters,
Right.
and what can help you get better, and what helps, and what on the other side sort of gets in the way and clouds judgment. In 3 years, Schilt took the Cardinals to the playoffs all 3 seasons, had massive success. This year, there was like a less than 5% chance of them getting in, and they stormed back, had that massive winning streak, and found their way into the wild card. There's something to be said about that. But at the same time, if you're trying to push more of this data-driven philosophy, if you're trying to get more analytical, if you're trying to embrace these sort of things, and you don't feel like you have the right guy at the helm, that's a roadblock. And again, I personally do not agree with this move. I think there was more conversation should be had on a topic like this if you're gonna fire a guy for it, especially. But it's obvious that Mozeliak and the Cardinals front office is very staunch in their belief in this. They want to become more data-driven. They want to implement this process. And by having a manager who just doesn't believe in that, they feel that that's sort of getting in their way. That's one aspect it looks like here. And maybe that's not the be-all, end-all. In fact, it probably isn't. But you have to look at that and sort of wonder, how much of an issue is that when we're in a world today of baseball where analytics and data is king. It's what's, front offices and everyone, they're hiring guys who have this kind of mindset, who can communicate the data, who understand the data and stuff like that. And that's sort of the question that comes to mind for me is like, how far are these organizations willing to go in order to achieve this philosophy? And I think Exhibit A in this case is the Cardinals saying straight up, hey, your views aren't in line with ours. We don't want you a part of it. And it's as simple as that.
And to be fair, the Cardinals have earned every right to make questionable decisions and get the benefit of the doubt because they've been such a successful organization. Haven't had a losing season since, I believe, 2007 was the last one, and that was the year after they won the 2006 World Series. Obviously 2006. But so they're a very well-run organization. Obviously that shows when you have 13 straight winning seasons now, if I did my mental math correctly. But it doesn't matter to me whether or not your manager is like, oh, like I'm all in on analytics, or like, oh, I'm not all in on analytics. Like, if he's doing a good job as the manager, I think he should be able to, give him some leeway and say, all right, we're going to present you with this information and you can do so however so you may. Like, I mean, Cole, you bring up a good point. I thought you did a great job of laying that out there, talking about what the Cardinals may be talking, but I just didn't think that this fire made a ton of sense given how successful Schultz had been. But like I said, if any team deserves the right to like be questioned and like given the benefit of the doubt, it's the Cardinals. I'd also put the Rays, the Dodgers, the Brewers, even the Braves now at this point. I'd give them that little benefit of the doubt. All right, we're gonna come back from a quick commercial break. When we come back, we will be talking about. We'll start with the National League Division Series, and then we'll move into the American League side.
I crashed on StreamYard, so I'm re-entering the studio now. Oh yeah, sorry about that.
All good.
If you're a combat sports fan or just a sports fan in general, join me every Wednesday from 2:30 to 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Again, the Hump Day headlock Wednesday from 2:30 to 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Only on Blaze Radio and Blaze Radio Online.
You're listening to Blaze Radio, 1330 AM, KASC Tempe Phoenix. Playing your favorite local artists around the clock. Blaze Radio, your local.
Sorry about that. Dom had a little brain fart there running the board. Cue another music. I apologize. Welcome back to the Gold Sombrero Show here on BlazeRadioOnline.com. Dominic Stern, Cole Bradley, and Ryan Blank to talk about the latest in baseball. We just talked about minor leaguers getting housing paid for, and then the firing of Mike Shildt, the Cardinals manager. Now we're going to talk about the National League Division Series, and let's just talk about the big one first. Giants-Dodgers, battle of the two NL West powerhouses, one of the most historic rivalries in baseball, and two teams that led the league in wins this year. They met in the NLDS after the Dodgers won the wildcard game. Won 5 games. The Dodgers ended up winning it. Ryan, I'm going to go to you first. What was your reaction based on the series? The Dodgers pulling it off in 9 inning with a game-winning hit by Cody Bellinger in the 9th inning.
I'm going to describe it a few things. First, for the Giants, they found their future ace in Logan Webb. Twice he shoved against the best lineup in baseball and shut them down. So, got to give credit to him. Also, for the Giants, I know it's a tough loss, especially with how it ended with the check swing call, even though he didn't go. Here's how I look at it for them. Future's extremely bright. Got your future ace. Also have the 8th bet, I can't remember if it's 8th according to MLB Pipeline, but they have a top 10 farm system, I know for sure. So the future is bright there, and then you still got Crawford. So that team is going to be there again. They're going to continue to be able to make the playoffs and make a push. I'm not worried about that. Now, onto the Dodgers side, what else can you say? This team continues to fight with their backs against the wall. They did it last year when they were down 3-1 to the Braves, and then they do it when they're down 2-1 and on the brink of elimination at home and in Oracle Park. So what they just continuously do is honestly incredible. And I'm going to say this about Cody Bellinger. Yeah, he may not be playing at an MVP level like he was a couple years ago. Here's the thing. That man is as clutch can get when it comes to October. Last year, it was the go-ahead homer in Game 7 of the NLCS against the Braves. This year, go ahead and game-winning RBI single against the Giants. What else? I know that
I appreciate you not bringing up the robbed home run of Fernando Tatis Jr.
I wasn't going to do that to you.
Thank you.
I wasn't going to do that to you. And I know people are saying, oh, he's overrated. He's not good. Say whatever you want. He just proved everyone wrong. He's continuously come up in the big moments when the Dodgers need it most. And honestly, I think that's worth more than what anyone has to say about him. So I want to put that out there as well. Max Scherzer continues to show that in any situation he can be thrown in and still dominate. Got to give a shout out to Walker Buehler as well for pitching on 3 days rest and going out and pitching very well in game 4. In game 4 when they needed it. So the Dodgers, this team they're so loaded and they have so many guys that can step up and play clutch baseball when they need it. And that's what happened throughout the last 2 games of the series.
Man, I think Ryan hit the nail on the head there. It was a great series. I
really enjoyed watching it. And yeah, I think forever I'll be shocked at how well and how exceedingly good the Giants were this year as opposed to what they were pegged to be. So, I mean, kudos to them for taking it all 5 games, and it was a heck of a series. And like you said, Ryan, Logan Webb pitched great. He was their rock this run. I mean, 2 starts was incredible, and he really got the job done for them. Only gave up 1 run in 14 2/3. That's really good. That's what you want. You want a frontline guy. You want a frontline ace. And the last time these guys were in the postseason, they had Madison Bumgarner and guys like that. But now they're coming in. It was sort of speculation like, oh, Gosman hasn't been as good, and things haven't been going great lately. But Logan Webb stepped up and was solid. He was good for them. Alex Wood, granted he didn't go really deep into the game, but in that 1-0 win at Dodger Stadium on that windy night, I forget what game that was. Game 3. That was game 3. Went 4 2/3, didn't give up a run, did his job, turned it over to the bullpen. They did their job as well. So I think the Giants have figured out how to play the Dodgers and compete with them, and it was evident this year. And that's very critical moving forward because, again, this is, it's a division matchup. It's a division rival. They're going to face each other 16 more times next year. And any bit of intel you can get going forward is valuable. So good for them just taking it 5 games. It was horrible to end it the way it ended. But on the Dodgers side, I mean, there's nothing really else to say that Ryan didn't cover. But I think there's something just to be said for how I mean, again, we've talked about the depth countless amounts of times, but, and you talked about Cody Bellinger as well. But even when things aren't going, I wouldn't say things aren't going great, but when things aren't going, the way you want them to, and this is from a player perspective, it's always encouraging to see a guy like, Gavin Lux or Chris Taylor who had massive runs coming into the postseason and just haven't seen them come to fruition. Both those guys, if I had an observation, one underlying observation to make about that series, both of these guys in particular just crushed the ball every time they were at the plate. And that's an encouraging thing going forward. You want your guys to hit the ball hard and hit it solid. And when guys like Bellinger and, Will Smith and those guys are sort of picking up the slack, that's great. But it's encouraging if you're a Dodger fan to see guys like Chris Taylor and Gavin Lux hit the ball hard this postseason. And they both did that throughout this past series, especially Taylor. I don't think I saw an at-bat he took where he didn't finish with, a missile somewhere. So that's one big thing for them, I think, going forward. And I think if there's anything to sort of close up that thought for me, it's just their bullpen is what's going to really push them forward here. I mean, you saw it in the wild card game where they just took control from the minute, I think it was after the first inning, the tide started to turn. I think the Cards scored 1 that inning, and then they just got shut down. Scherzer, when I think it was like 5 or something, and then the bullpen took over, and it was nothing. And that's just, I mean, if their bullpen's in order, if things are going right for them in the bullpen, Kenley Jansen, if Kenley Jansen continues to pitch the way he's pitched, they're gonna make a run at the title again, and that's important if they want to get there. So, am I surprised with the result? Not really. But was it encouraging to see a team like the Giants take them 5 games and really compete with them to the end? Absolutely. So it was a good series.
Yeah, and the offense actually they need to step it up because they've done much so far in game number 1 against the Braves. They didn't necessarily do great in all the games against the Giants. I mean, the 2 games that they lost, they got shut out. They won game 3, 2-1. So you get the job done, but if the pitching slips up just a little bit, they've been able to recover. So the offense for the Dodgers needs to step it up. One guy that's been hot for them has been Mookie Betts. He had a great performance in that Game 5 win. I think he went 5 for 5 or it was 4 for 5. He had a heck of a night. So he's been impressing. There were a lot of people who are talking about how he was overrated after he had a good shortened season, and I'm just like, all right, you're an idiot. Thanks for letting me know that your baseball intelligence is very low because Mookie Betts is the second best player in baseball. If you want to put Ohtani in front of him, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong there, but what Mookie Betts has done since 2016 is only matched by one player, and that player is Michael Trout. So I'm going to disagree with you on that point. But he's been good. And Cole, like you mentioned, their bullpen's been good. First half of the season was very shaky, but they've settled in. Blake Trinan's been one of the best relievers in baseball, although he did allow the walk-off hit in the 9th inning last night to the Braves. And also, there's been guys like Alex Vesia, Phil Bickford, Corey Knebel's been their opener. They've just got a lot of guys out there that can pitch well. They're going to have Tommy Kahnle coming off Tommy John surgery next year, so that's going to be another good arm for them. They've just been finding arms. They've been, their player development. We've talked about it. The Dodgers, they invest in their minor league players. Guess what? It works. The Indians, they do this too, especially with their pitchers. Guess what? It works. So the Dodgers, they're just going to keep rolling out pitchers. So even when there's a small little opening, you're like, oh, hey, the Dodgers bullpen doesn't look so good this year. It's only been for a little bit amount of time. So the Dodgers, they've looked super impressive. The offense does need to step it up if they want to be able to get past the Braves because the Braves pitching staff has been very impressive so far. And, the Braves, the way they hit home runs and the way they've been pitching at the Dodgers lineup isn't going to step it up. They might get bounced like the Giants just got bounced against them for not scoring because the Giants, they only scored 9 runs in that 5-game series. The offense didn't show up either. So, when you look at it, these lineups, some of them that had done this, the platooning, based on the analytics, the Rays lineup didn't necessarily do that well. The Brewers lineup did not do well. The Giants, they didn't do too well either. So that's obviously unfortunate. And it's tough for the Giants to have a 107-win season come down to Game 5, winner take all, against a 106-win team. And it comes down because, once the 8th inning ends in a tie, you're in sudden death baseball, whether it's the 9th or the 10th or whatever. You're in sudden death, and to have your season come down to that in an elimination game, it's great for us as fans of baseball, and also now as journalists here at Blaze Radio for the Golden Sombrero Show on BlazeRadioOnline.com. But it's just tough, and then for them to end on that check swing where it looked like Wilmer Flores really didn't go, but it would have been a 1-2 count. We're not saying Wilmer Flores would have came through, but we'll never know, and that's it's going to be a huge what if, because what if Wilmer Flores gets a base hit, passes the baton on? What if he does hit a home run? Or what if he just gets out on the next pitch? And then Giants fans would have a lot less to complain about. But
We'll never know.
We will also, never know. The whole ball don't lie theory, looking back at July 22nd with the whole Darren Ruff situation, if you guys remember that, people are saying the longest ball don't lie of all time.
No.
But
well, because that at bat, Ruff had a horrible strike 2 call or strike 1. There was a pitch that was nowhere near the strike zone that got called for a strike, and then it would have been ball 3, would have been ball 4. But the Dodger fans that are talking about that, they don't remember that because they're a short-sighted fan base. But yeah, Dodgers, they advanced on the NLCS. They're currently taking on the Atlanta Braves, who shocked a very good Brewers team. The rotation.
Can I add something about the Dodgers real quick?
Sure.
I know a lot of people give Dave Roberts a lot of flack about not being that great of a manager. He has proven to make some very, very good decisions so far this postseason. One, going and getting Scherzer in the wild card game, and then starting Corey Knebel. Those are good moves by him. So I think that people should start hating on him less because he is starting to make moves that are becoming keys to them winning ball games. So I want to mention that. And then Chris, back to the wild card game. Here's what I take from that. He came in as a pinch hitter that hits the walk-off homer. Here's what I take from that entire thing. I do not ever want to hear an athlete complain about playing time after watching that. Make the most of your playing time and your at-bats, and then see what happens, because that's what Chris Taylor did. Just wanted to put that out there.
Well, but I mean, the difference between Chris Taylor and most of those athletes that are complaining about playing time is that Chris Taylor, he's done significantly better against left-handed pitchers this year. He plays for a team that has incredible depth.
Yeah.
He was an all-star, so he wasn't not playing because he
And also,
is a good player.
also
knows
second
his
half,
matchup.
he was really bad. He had been in a huge slump at the end of the year.
So
that's the other thing.
I mean, I agree
should
with the
add.
sentiment of it, but I just think that the Chris Taylor example, he
knows his role.
Yeah, he knows his role. That's the way these teams operate. And if you're not willing to operate in these teams with these roles, they just trade you because they
Right.
know that if you go to another team that's not going to utilize you as well, such as teams like the Padres, you're not going to do as well, and you're not going to win. And they're just going to find the Dodgers are going to find the next Chris Taylor. I mean, they've done it. Now, I mean, we'll talk about Kike Hernandez in a little bit, but they haven't found their next Kike Hernandez because Kike Hernandez and Chris Taylor, they're kind of those two, right-handed guys that can play all over the field. And then Hernandez went to Boston this offseason. Taylor's going to be a free agent this offseason. Please leave, Chris. Begging you. But it's the Dodgers. They're going to find one of those guys because their player development is so good. So if those guys aren't willing to play in those roles, they're not going to play in them because the Dodgers will just trade you.
They probably got 5 Chris Taylors waiting in the wings in the minor leagues while we speak. So
I wouldn't be shocked. But anyways, other series, like I mentioned, Braves over the Brewers. The Brewers won game 1. They shut out the Braves, or no, they didn't shut out the Braves because it is Jocktober after all. But only allowed 1 run. You're sitting there, you're like, oh man, is this really what the series is going to be like? This Brewers rotation has dominated all year against a Braves team that struggled for the most part of the season. Got hot the last month and a half after the trade deadline. Got into the playoffs because their division stunk, and they went 88-73, which is a good record. It's 15 games above 500, but it's not going to win you most division races every year. They got in, and credit to the Braves. I mean, they came back. They won game 2. They won game 3. They won game 4. And guess what? They're now a game up on the Dodgers in the NLCS. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I mean, the Braves beating the Brewers. Ryan, I know it shocked you, but Cole, did this shock you? Because you weren't here when we made our little predictions before the playoffs started, but did this shock you?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think before the last show I was on, I think I made the point that the Brewers were built like a World Series team. And I honestly, I believe that throughout that series. I honestly still believe it. I just think that their offense, which was already pretty shaky to begin with, just flat out did not show up. Like it was abysmal. And you got to score runs to win games. That's obvious. You can't completely rely on your pitching, but you see how much it works in their favor when they're able to score runs and, they're able to get on the board. Game 1, Exhibit A, they scored all but 2 runs in that game, pitched their way to a win. That's how this team operated for most of the season. And that's all they really needed to do, just timely offense. And they didn't have that. And the Braves kind of beat them at their own game. And Max Fried pitched great. Charlie Morton was great. That bullpen was fantastic. I heard earlier today, in 17 innings this postseason, the Braves bullpen has surrendered The Braves bullpen has like a 1.02 ERA, that's awesome. That's exactly what you want. And that's huge. So that's big for Atlanta, especially considering just where they're at health wise. They haven't had Acuna for most of the year. They haven't had Soroka, which we've talked about a lot. That makes a difference. And the fact that they've been able to get as far as they have is nothing short of impressive. And I think a big part of that comes down to Jock Peterson, who I think it was you mentioned earlier, and he again sort of beat the Brewers at their own game. Didn't really start that much, and he's beating the Dodgers at it right now with the home run earlier. And again, he's only had 12 at bats this postseason, 12 and counting, I think. But his hits have been timely. He's had the big home runs. Freddie Freeman had that big home run that clinched the series against Josh Hader. That sort of encapsulates what the Braves can do. This Braves lineup is still very deep. It's still very competitive. It's still really, really good without those guys that we've mentioned before. And it just goes to show in their ability to put away the Brewers like that in 4 games with authority. And that's big for them because I think this is the matchup they wanted after they blew that 3-1 lead against LA last year. This is what they wanted, and they're getting it. And I think after last night, taking that win on the walk-off, and so far tonight, the way they've competed, they're showing that they're hungry. They remember it's still a thorn in their side from last year, and I think that's pretty cool, and it's going to be something to follow. But yeah, I mean, pitching, they need to keep up what they've done sort of all postseason in terms of the pitching. I mentioned Max Fried before. He's given up 2 runs this entire postseason. He's been really, really good. It's exactly what they need from him going forward. So as long as you have that and you're timely with your offensive approach, like they have been, you're gonna win some games and you're gonna get pretty far. So that's big for the Braves.
Yeah. You talked about how the Braves wanted the Dodgers. I did not want the Braves to get the Dodgers because my trust level in the Braves is very low after last year and after 2019 too.
Mine is as well.
And they did lose to them in 4 games in 2018 as well. Ryan, I mean, this was shocking to you and I when we came on here 2 weeks ago. Cole was coming back from the Rose Bowl, so he was unable to join us. We both said that we thought the Brewers were going to handle the Braves. I mean, it was shocking. This team that hadn't pitched well for the majority of the year, they did pitch well towards the end of the season. They came in and they just dominated the Brewers, and they only took 1 game out on Milwaukee, but they took both games at home. And as the team that's in the lower seed, all you got to do is take 1 game on the road and win your home games, and you win the series, and you don't ever face an elimination game. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, this game is a huge shock. You saw like you said, Cole, the offense went dead for the Brewers. It's that timely offense that was able to get them over the hump throughout the entire season. They also weren't playing in the strongest division, and they were beating them up there. But also that starting pitching and that bullpen had just been dominant throughout the entire season. And I'm curious as to how big of an effect did it have on the Brewers not having Devin Williams after he broke his wrist. What effect does that have? What was that impact on the series? But Jocktober's in full swing, as you mentioned earlier, Dom. But the ability of the Braves to just continue to just be one of the best underdog stories of this season. They lose their franchise star, and they're able to get hot at the right moment towards the end of the season on the home stretch, get themselves to win that division, and now they're in the NLCS with a 1-0 game lead without their star player. And you also got to give credit to them for going out and being aggressive at the trade deadline, getting Jorge Soler, getting Jock Peterson, getting Eddie Rosario. So they've made right moves, and yet Brian Snitker has proved that whatever pieces and whatever cards are thrown his way, he's going to make the best of it, and he's going to be able to win games, and that's what they've done. So the Braves, it does not shock me that their ability to win with the roster that they have it's shocking that they beat a team that, as Cole, like you said, you described them as a World Series caliber team. And I'm just shocked that when you look at the Brewers, that offense went that dead. They were just silent throughout that series. So, again, a top-tier pitching staff wasted by no offense. And I know that the whole thing is you win based off your bullpen, you win off your pitching in the postseason. Yeah, that may be true in the late innings, but you also got to score runs to win games, like you said, Cole, and they were unable to do that.
And we need to give a shout out on the Brewers to my boy Rowdy Tellez. He had 2 home runs. He hit the 2-run home run in game 1 that ended up propelling them to the win. And then in game 4, he hit a tying home run. Or maybe it was a go-ahead home run. I think it was tying home run. Otherwise, they lost. But Freddie Freeman hit the go-ahead home run off Josh Hader in the 8th inning that propelled the Brewers to win that, or that propelled the Braves to win game 4. So that was how that happened. But this is the Golden Sombrero show, guys. Freddie Freeman, Golden Sombrero in game 1 of the NLCS. He's 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts in game 2.
He's on the Golden Sombrero watch.
So, he's not just on the watch. He's on – well, he's on the watch today, but he had a Golden Sombrero. Have one of the best hitters, especially a contact hitter like Freddie Freeman is. He's not just a contact hitter for power, but strikeouts not a big part of his game, but he's the Dodgers. They're handling him well, and the Dodgers not handling him well in the NLCS last year.
They did.
But he's not doing too hot right now.
Here's
so.
a tweet that just popped up on my feed. Freddie Freeman 2020 postseason, 6 Ks and 53 plate appearances. So far this postseason, 6 Ks in his last 6 plate appearances.
Well, and it's now 7.
Yeah.
As I'm updating you. Was that tweet like before this last strikeout, or?
I think it was before this last strikeout.
Yeah, there you go. So it's kind of crazy. What you're seeing from Freddie Freeman, you just don't see. But we know if anyone can turn it around, it's definitely Freddie Freeman. So we'll see. That's something to watch out for. In game 1, Max Fried, 6 innings, 2 earned runs. He pitched well. Gonsolin, he allowed a run. Knebel allowed a run. Then Blake Trinan came in for the 9th inning in a tie game. Ozzie Albies hit a little blooper. Trinan, he's not quick to home, threw a slider.
Mhm.
Will Smith, he's got a noodle for an arm. I've told him that several times at Petco Park. Ozzie Albies steals second, and then Austin Riley gets out in front of a slider, hooks it down the line. It was fair. And the Braves, they won game 1. I mean, I assumed that we were all going to take the Dodgers in this series, to Cole and I's dismay. But, after game 1, it's tied through 5 in games 2. What are we thinking about this series?
We're talking about this series right now?
Yeah, Braves Dodgers.
I kind of like you said, when it came to my finishing thoughts about Braves Brewers, this is the series I think the Braves wanted. They want the Dodgers. They want to prove that they're the better team. I'm sort of siding with you in terms of, it's probably not the team you still want to face. It's not the team that you would want to see them face, because the Dodgers are just the better team. And I think that's the case with whoever they play. But the fact that they got to go through Atlanta in the championship series and not Milwaukee, which in my opinion would probably be a much more formidable opponent, or even if they by some chance were able to go through San Francisco in a CS, I think that would be a much more competitive series. Like this, I just don't think this really works in the favor of Atlanta at all. They need to continue to pitch the way they've pitched, but you can't always rely on that. And that's something that I'm a little skeptical about going forward. So we'll see kind of how it works out. But last night was a big win, and I think they brought it to the table tonight as well. It's just it's just going to be about,
continuing to just build upon it and figuring out ways to best the Dodgers in the little areas, because that's the only way you're gonna win is by doing that. We'll see what tonight's outcome brings, but I don't feel too good about Atlanta's chances.
Right.
Here's the thing. This Atlanta team can be counted out as many times as we have throughout the course of the season and countless other people, and yet they will still go out and win games. And yeah, the odds are stacked against them. And yeah, I think the Dodgers are going to win this series. But their ability to keep the games close and to limit this Dodgers offense, that I don't know if it's self-inflicted wounds or what, but they have been extremely quiet throughout the postseason. But the pitching for the Braves has been very strong since the end of the regular season, and that's just really carried them. Is that sustainable? Probably not. But at the same time, if the Dodgers offense is not going to put up runs and is going to strand base runners and and keep the door open for the Braves, their timely offense will take advantage of that. And that is where I think this series could be altered. But again, I think the Dodgers, they're going to wake up. Still have Buehler. They still got Urias to pitch. And they just had Scherzer pitch today. So, yeah, I think the Dodgers are going to win. But if they leave that opportunity open for the Braves, they could sneak in and take it.
It'll be very interesting to see how it plays out. I'm in agreement with you guys. I'm not going to count out the Braves, but I do think the Dodgers win it. Game one, it's a lot less important in a best of 7 series than it is in a best of 5. But guess who also lost game 1 of their series? The Dodgers. So they've proven they can come back. So did the Braves. So now they've won game 1. But we'll see how that plays out. Moving over to the American League side, let's talk about the more boring series, in my opinion. I think you guys will definitely agree with me.
Hey.
I'm right.
Hey, no need to hate on the AL. I know I'm outnumbered here.
No, I said boring series. I was referring to the White Sox Astros series. I wasn't referring to the AL play. No, Red Sox Rays was awesome. What are you talking about?
That was the best. That's probably been the best series.
No, it's
Okay.
Dodgers Giants.
Dodgers Giants was the best series.
There were some instant classics in that.
Yeah, I mean, there were.
Sox series.
Yeah, that Red Sox Rays series.
Anyways,
it's up there.
I was more proving Ryan wrong for misinterpreting my statement.
Yeah, I did misinterpret it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So let's talk about the boring series.
Oh.
The series. White Sox and Astros. And I mean, the Astros just came in and they pummeled the White Sox. The White Sox, they just kind of skated through the last half of the season.
Yeah.
Playing in a really bad division,
Yeah.
playing against all those teams such as the Royals.
Hey,
that was a dig.
Hey, you could say the Twins who got last.
That was a dig. I definitely said Royals first, but yeah, the Twins.
I was nice and held off the home run rob of Tatis last year, and then you treat me with this.
Yes.
Man, I'm never being nice to you again.
Well, just remember who's driving you home after the show. So, anyways, the Royals, the Twins, the Tigers, and even the Indians in the second half of the year, who are now the Guardians. Now the season's over, by the way.
All 4 of those teams were under 500 at the end of the year.
So the White Sox didn't have a tough schedule, and
And I believe
they
their
took
win
advantage.
percentage against teams over 500 was under 450.
Yeah, no,
It was bad.
They were a pretty fraudulent team in the regular season.
Yes.
Now we all know they're a talented team.
Yeah.
They were finally somewhat healthy. Rodon, who didn't pitch a lot in the last half of the season because he was going through some injuries, he looked really good. Eloy Jimenez was back. Yasmani Grandal was back. Luis Robert was back. So they were healthy. It didn't matter because the pitching staff got crushed. None of their starters had, really good starts. Giolito was definitely the best out of the 4 that went out, but the Astros dominated. When the AL batting title champion is batting 7th, Yuli Gurriel, it's normally a pretty good sign about your lineup, and it showed.
I think the downfall in that series was having Lance Lynn pitch on the road. Because where did he struggle most?
The road.
No. What stadium? I should have said what stadium. My bad.
Minute Maid.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
He struggled heavily at Minute Maid the last time he pitched there prior to his start there. He still went with him. So I think that was a mistake made by La Russa. I probably would have saved him for when they return to Chicago, which I know is hard, but you got to make those sacrifices because you saw what happened. But this just proved that the White Sox were not the team that we expected throughout this season. Yeah, they beat up on their own division, which they should have. The division is not good. It's the worst division in baseball. So I think that is what you have to look at, is that the White Sox, you knew they were a fraudulent team, and it was just proven. Despite all the talent that they have, they got beat down. In the one game they won, they proved that they could light up the scoreboard.
Yeah, I agree. And like those big guys didn't really show up. I mean, you know, from my understanding, Tim Anderson wasn't really at his best. You know,
He had a good start to the series, and then
Yeah.
he faded
he
off
kinda
towards the
fell
end.
off. And you know, they just looked flat. But even when they were at their best, they were scoring runs, they were doing what they were good at, which was getting on the board. Houston, I mean, I think this series just proves how potent their offense is.
I mean, Houston just answered
every
every single call to action that the White Sox had for them, and they just didn't have any answers for it at the back end. And I think that's huge, especially when you have everyone firing on all cylinders going into the ALCS. That's only doing them favors as well. But when everyone, I mean, Kyle Tucker, Yuli Gurriel, Bregman, Altuve, Correa, when all those guys are going, it's something. It's a sight to behold.
It is.
And not to mention their bullpen was really staunch this series as well. Lance McCullers pitching like the ace they want him to be.
He's out.
Um,
He was not on the NCS roster.
he's not, but he's helped them get to this point.
100%.
And that's sort of what matters, at least right now. And I think it's set up a series between two of probably some of the most comparable teams in terms of you just stack up lineups, pitching rotation, maybe not so much bullpen. I would consider the Red Sox and the Astros the two most similar in terms of just, what they live and die by. These are two very offensive-driven teams. And it's been a pretty good series so far. But I think that Houston's just proving that, they're that much better than everyone thought they were, I think, coming in. And they stuck it to a team that at the beginning of the year people thought was a World Series contender.
Definitely. And Luis Garcia, he struggled in his outing there, and then he struggled in his outing in the ALCS. So that's going to be an interesting storyline to follow. He also left game 2 of the ALCS with an injury. So definitely interesting to follow. The other series, we'll talk about this quickly as we have about 4 minutes left on the Golden Sombrero show before the college basketball bonanza. Red Sox, Rays, the Rays, they jump out in game 1. They shut out the Red Sox. And, if you're like me, you're like, all right, there's the Rays team, but you're not counting out the Red Sox because they've proven all year that they're resilient. And that's exactly what they did because, they go down 5-2, I believe, in game number 2, and then just stormed back on the road, came back, won, then jumped out to an early lead in game 3. The Rays, they punched back, but Nick Pivetta was a baller in this series, and he's able to hold off the Rays. Then Vasquez hits the game-winning home run in game 3. Then in game 4, once again, the Red Sox are winning. The Rays tied up. Cole and I were watching this game together. And then Kike Hernandez, he did what he'd done all postseason. It wasn't a base hit this time, one of the few at-bats where he got out, but it was a sac fly to win the game. Ryan, very quickly, what did you make of this series and just the Red Sox, man?
This series was electric. I mean, I'm going to say it this way. Without the performance from Nick Pivetta in Game 3, Game 4 does not happen like that for the Red Sox because that bullpen would have been so taxed. So what he did was really set them up so well. So you got to give him credit there. But this Red Sox team, the offense has done it. And despite the limited pitching that they have, they're still able to win games. And this just proves why they brought back Alex Cora after his suspension is because he is that good of a manager.
I think I've been in that camp ever since he was hired there. Really, I mean, he knows how to make the right moves, especially when it's on the line, when all the chips are down. And I'll tell you what, he managed a pitching staff that is mightily worse in terms of depth and even health,
talent
compared to his, and he tested them at what they do best. And Pivetta was great, like you said. I'm just going to quickly talk about Kike Hernandez and Nathan Eovaldi. Eovaldi for starters. I mean, when you need a starter in the postseason, you need a consistent ace. This guy's gone 5 innings in all 3 of his postseason starts so far, and he's been solid for them. And when you need to eat up innings in the postseason, you need a starter who can pitch deep into games, and that has not been Chris Sale so far this postseason. They need to get him back on track.
Yeah, he's still finding it.
But it's been Nathan Eovaldi, and that's big for them. I know Eduardo Rodriguez was also really solid for them in that final game of the Rays series, which was big to see, especially after he got touched up in his first outing of that series. That's a step in the right direction. But Kike Hernandez is the talk of the town. I'm kind of shocked that it took us this long to get to this point. 16 hits in this postseason so far. He's batting at even 500.
Yeah.
5 home
Incredible.
runs. He's incredible. He's honestly proving why he was probably one of him and Hunter Renfroe, why they were probably some of the steals of the offseason. They came in on cheap deals, and they've been really, really good down the stretch, especially Kike. And he's come up clutch in the postseason. And I mean, it's kind of crazy that it's been coming from such an unlikely hero like him. But, we'll see if it continues.
All right, that's all we got from the Golden Sombrero Show. We thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back next Sunday to talk about the developments in the AL and LCS. Next up is the College Basketball Bonanza with myself and Nicholas Hodel.